But they keep saying, the FBI director and others at this time, keywords. Hold on for a moment. I want to go out to California right now. The attorney for the Farouk family is speaking with reporters. Let's listen in.
Who's the brother-in-law?
Farhan.
Farhan.
Yeah.
Will you get close to the mic, please?
How many other brothers and sisters are there?
There's 2 sisters, and there's 1 brother, Raheel. Yeah, Saeed, yes.
Is it Saeed or Syed?
Saeed Farouk, yeah.
So essentially, the message that we want to give is that what we'd like to say on behalf of the families and the Muslim community in general is that just as late as 1 p.m. today, the FBI chief, James Comey, came out and said that there was no sign that the alleged shooters belonged to a larger organization, like a larger organized terrorist group or terrorist cell. So I mean, they're trying to, or they have come up with some things where they're trying to say that they were inspired by some groups, but there hasn't been any clear smoking gun evidence that they were part of any particular cell or any group. They're pointing to things that they saw on Facebook under different account names. In the case of Tashin Malik, she supposedly had a Facebook account set up under a different name that they say visited some group that may have been had ties to, to more,
And as more
groups.
information keeps coming out, we're going to be able to identify which facts are accurate and which facts are not. And that is the whole point of us meeting with the FBI. We've been in open communication with the agents of the FBI. We've been at their offices in Riverside. We were there for about 4 hours yesterday, and we'll be finishing up on Monday, hopefully, with some of the other family members. As more facts come out about the types of relationships that each individual family member had, we're going to be relating that to you guys as well.
Yeah.
Well, what can you say right now? What do you know about what inspired them?
What we can say from our 4-hour interview, or the investigation that took place with the FBI yesterday, is that none of the family members had any idea that this was going to take place. They were totally shocked. That is, Raheen, Syra, and Iba, that is the brother and sisters of the alleged shooter, had no idea, to the point where when they got word that there was an incident that had taken place, they were worried about the health and safety of Saeed and Tashfeen because they had it was just, there's never been any evidence that either of the 2 alleged shooters were aggressive, had extremist views. They were totally shocked that this could take place, as shocked as anybody else was.
And the family members knew Tashin as a sister-in-law. That's what they knew her as. They had a basic relationship with her. It wasn't overly close, but it wasn't too distant. So the information that we have right now was shocking and as surprised as the family was when they found out the information that actually came out. There's no official determination of what the reason was when we actually were discussing everything with FBI yesterday. And they're still going through their facts and their diligence as we are as well.
If there's anything remarkable about the investigation that took place yesterday, it is that no ties could really be established, to the point of frustration on the part of the FBI. I mean, if the most evidence there is to any affiliation is a Facebook account under another person's name that supposedly just visited some site, then that's hardly anything at all. And throughout the whole process of the investigation yesterday, it got to the point where the FBI actually said, look, let us explain ourselves. We're trying to find evidence or information that could cause us to believe that Saeed Farouk was in some way affiliated with this incident, like something inspired him to be involved in this incident. But the problem we're having is that we're not finding any evidence of any behavior that would show us that this would be the alleged shooter. And so, why is that happening? And we were all like, well, we don't have any explanation for you other than that there is no evidence. None of the family knew of him as being extreme or aggressive or having any extreme religious views.
And I think what the media should also be cautious about is just because he had a religion, that he was Muslim, it had nothing to do with these acts. Islam does not agree and does not support any type of actions that occur like this. It does not support killing. It does not support murder of innocent individuals. And the family would never support anything like this. And they're given their hearts and their prayers and everything else that they can do to assist in the victims who lost their life that day as well.
What point are you trying to make? If the two of them indeed did not have any real ties to these groups, but may have been sympathetic to these groups, what point do you want to make off
And the media is not making these allegations, it's the FBI who is.
The FBI actually hasn't made... The media is leading with just assuming that this is a terrorist situation.
The FBI is making is that there's an investigation into this as a possible terrorist
I think every investigation that the FBI does when it's involving a Muslim will involve some type of terrorist investigation for it.
I guess with the FBI, but we're just relaying the information that they're giving.
We're not.
So what do you think the motive is then for the shooting?
I mean, there was information about the fact that his coworker has kind of made fun of him, for example, and his beard. He was a very isolated, introverted individual with really no friends that we could identify, like maybe one friend or no friends. And so I guess what we would say is that when an incident happens like this, when a Christian goes to shoot up a Planned Parenthood, or an extreme Catholic goes and bombs an abortion clinic, all the headlines don't say extremist, radical, Christian, Catholic, Christian, Catholic, Christian, Catholic. Just like right now, every headline is saying Muslim and attaching Muslim to it. I just think there's a tendency to take a cookie cutter version or paradigm of a terrorist type event and superimpose it on a situation just because that person is of Muslim belief or Muslim tradition. And I don't think we should jump to too many conclusions, in particular because we need to protect the Muslim community. And right now we're seeing a lot of infringements upon rights that are important to all of us. By this I mean we're talking about political candidates that could very likely be our next president who are saying things like we should register all Muslims and that mosques should be investigated and looked into, or that the families of terrorists should be killed without due process, or the latest thing that was said was that it was known that it was a terrorist act that was committed simply because the person had an Islamic last name. And I think any of us sitting here could say, look, if somebody said that they knew a heinous criminal act had been committed due to religion just because it was a person of a certain last name, and let's say it was alleged to be committed on behalf of Christians and you had a Christian last name, or was alleged to be committed on behalf of Jews and you had a Jewish last name, and your faith was constantly being attacked. I mean, I have so many Muslim friends and so many people that I work with that are Muslim, and every Muslim community around the world has been in a state of remorse and condemnation of these acts. No one supports it, just as I think no Christian or Catholic would say, oh yeah, that's a good Catholic that bombed that abortion clinic or shot up that Planned Parenthood. But we can't even use that example because as of yet, like the FBI chief James Comey said, there has been no evidence that they've found yet, this is his words in the LA Times, as of 1 p.m. today, that they are linked to a larger organized terrorist group or terrorist cell. All there is, and this is much the frustration I think of the FBI and everyone, because we all want an answer. We all are angry. We're all frustrated. We're all sad. We want justice. But unfortunately, some things in life aren't as clear cut as that. And all there is thus far is some nebulous thing that somebody looked at something on Facebook. I mean, any one of us may have looked at something on Facebook. It doesn't mean we believe in it. I've checked out a Britney Spears post, and I hate Britney Spears music. It doesn't mean that you condone whatever you look at or read, or you fully believe and you're acting on behalf of whatever you look at or read. So we just have to be protective of religious freedom in our country, of our Fourth Amendment rights. You know, just recently the landlords let journalists into the apartment of Syed
The
Farouk.
townhouse. And there's media outlets going through there taking pictures of people who were not either one of the suspects. They're invading their personal space. They're sending some inappropriate pictures as well. And I think this is the whole point of the FBI's investigation, is to determine what level and what actually caused this. As David said, LA Times has reported what James Como has said, and we're just waiting to get more information as well.
I mean,
If there were favorable attitudes expressed toward ISIS, what should people make of that?
What do you mean by favorable attitudes?
Well, the V supposedly expressed sympathy towards ISIS. What should people make of that?
what evidence is there of that, I would ask? What are you pointing to? In what ways did they express sympathy?
His exact quote is, "The investigation so far has developed indications of radicalizations by the killers and potential inspiration by foreign terrorist organizations." He did say that there's no indication that he's part of a local cell or a bigger cell, but these are his words.
He's trying to say it was inspired by, but what I've read so far, I mean, we're all learning because the investigation's ongoing. We're the attorneys for the family, not the investigators. So none of us have all the information right now. But from what I've read, all I've seen is that somebody looked at something on Facebook. There was another article I read that said that the FBI had investigated people who Syed Farouk allegedly spoke to, but even those people that the FBI had investigated, nothing came up for any of those people. And this is the danger we're getting into. I mean,
Can you explain this? Are you saying that you do not believe that there will be any connection to a foreign terror organization?
I think what we're saying is that we still have to wait for the investigation to be done before we make any type of determination.
Well, isn't that what the FBI is doing?
I don't think
And
that's
isn't that
what-
the FBI is saying?
I think that the reports that have been coming out now is that it's linked to a terrorist group or some type of...
They're investigating.
They're investigating it, but until the investigation is done, there cannot be made any type of determination of if there was a group, if there was a connection to anybody. And the moment that we start doing that...
That we should not be pursuing these developments as they emerge, because the FBI is going through the process, and it is a process.
Yes.
And as they get information and as they find out things, we're reporting it. So
I think the idea of terrorist has been reported since this incident happened. So I think as the more information comes out, then the media can start making reports. And as we get information, no, I'm saying that you guys shouldn't be making reports or statements concerning that there's a connection to a terrorist group until there is a factual link.
I mean, we're criminal defense attorneys. We look for actual evidence. So we can't jump to conclusions as what we believe.
We listen to what the FBI says because the FBI is gathering evidence.
Yes.
So we consider the FBI a credible source.
Right, yeah. I mean, I just think that what we're looking at is there, like I said, when the FBI chief has literally come out and said that they found no link to a larger terrorist group or a terrorist cell, I think people need to listen to that and consider that. And every headline, until there is absolute clear evidence, every headline doesn't have to say Muslim massacre or Muslim shooters, because it's going to cause intolerance, and what we need right now is forgiveness. I think although this is, there were Muslim people and Muslim families involved in this incident, and as a primarily Christian nation, I think we're a people of mercy and forgiveness, and I think we need to avoid bigotry, stereotyping. Anything that we would be uncomfortable happening to us as Christians, we should try to avoid doing that to Muslims as well.
Primarily, you're here to criticize some of the reports you've heard that link these acts to terrorism prematurely.
I don't think we're here to criticize. I think
We're here to
just
protect the clients, and they happen to be Muslim,
And it's
the
also-
Muslim community, and also to stand up for the victims and grieve the victims, and to say we're remorseful for what took place, and the Muslim community doesn't support or condone what took place. No Muslim does nationwide. Every single Muslim leader has come out and said this is not a Muslim act. When someone goes crazy and commits an act that could totally be work-related, it doesn't make a statement on behalf of an entire religion. We're trying to protect people, and at the same time, we're still in mourning for both the family and the victims, and it was tragic. It's horrible, and and we're trying to heal the nation, I think, as a whole.
If the family didn't see any evidence, if the family didn't see any evidence of terrorist sympathies, did they see any evidence of disgruntlement in the workplace, of unhappiness in his life?
There was a mention of where he got teased about his beard, but there was nothing else about that. He usually shrugged off any type of jokes that people might have made about his facial hair or his appearance.
That's what the family said, not what you read.
No, that's what the family said.
Yeah.
In your conversations with the people you represent, have they mentioned at all that these two people ever discussed ISIS in just a general conversation?
They never did, and that's you know, that's why we're just making sure that we're not overzealous in our characterization of these events one way or another until strong evidence comes out showing that this was indeed affiliated with something. I mean, I guess the frustration comes from we sat through this 4-hour interview with the FBI, and
the investigation is not done yet. We still have more interviews that we will be conducting with the FBI, and that's why I do caution on making any type of judgment before everything is done.
But also during the investigation, I would say we as attorneys, as criminal defense attorneys practicing for 10 years, we're looking for evidence. We're looking for things of substance to substantiate a link or a tie to something, just as the FBI was. And when we sat there for 4 hours, being in that interview with the family members, no one could identify any links or any radical or extremist behavior, any attempt to be forceful or hostile or aggressive in any way to force people to adhere to certain religious beliefs, any odd or strange or angry behavior before the time of the shooting on behalf of the alleged suspects. Nothing was there. So it's not so much I'm siding with one way or the other, but I'm just being objective. That's been my job all these years, and I'm just reporting to you what I've seen during that investigation. There was no evidence of anything, and then what we're hearing now from the media, I'm just saying from an objective perspective, has been very tenuous. So that's my feeling. I don't feel like we ought to be overzealous in our characterization of the events until we have additional evidence.
These were family members. These were family members who obviously were in the home, presumably. It was a brother, sister.
In
mother.
what home?
Well, the suspects' home.
Okay.
Did they ever see any evidence of what's been described by police, bomb making, large caches of ammunition, anything to suggest?
No, the family members knew that Saeed had 2 handguns, and they knew that he kept them locked up, so they're aware of that, and they also knew that he was licensed for them. The family members would have get-togethers on occasion, but they wouldn't be going through the rest of his house and inspecting the house. This was a brother that they had no idea that something like this could happen.
Yeah. There was never anything like, there was never any evidence of any of these pipe bombs that were seen around. In addition, I would also just say, I mean, you know, it has been horrible, and you know, as Americans, we all want to protect one another, make sure we're living in a safe and secure society. But, you know, statements made about, for example, the number of rounds that were there. As a gun owner myself, I myself probably have 4,000 or 5,000 rounds of bullets that I keep at home, and the reason why you buy them in bulk is because they're cheaper that way, and the government keeps on outlawing different types of bullets and different types of guns at different times, and then there'll be shortages of bullets that occur very commonly where Homeland Security will order 2 million of a certain kind of bullet, and you can't get that bullet. It's not available for many months. So especially if you're target shooting, it's not at all uncommon to own 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 rounds to have with you when you can get them at a cheap price. You stock up, and you know, one of the main things I want to make sure happens is that not only is anyone discriminated against as a result of this incident, but that we continue to protect our freedom of religion and also our Second Amendment rights to bear arms. We can't have this announcement by the president every time there's an incident like this that we need to ban all guns. Those rights are important to us as Americans. We died for those rights, and they shouldn't be denied.
Does the family have anything to say about Tashin's education? Do they know anything about her education?
All we know about Tafshin's education is that she grew up in Pakistan at about the age of 18 to 20 years of age. She moved over to Saudi Arabia. She was educated, but there was nothing to show that. I've read some reports that she was a VP or a pharmacist. There's nothing from the family other than education.
She's not a pharmacist.
She's not a pharmacist over here.
I mean, she was.
She was a housewife. She took care of the child. The mother lived with them at the house, so she was primarily a housewife. She had only come over here in 2014.
How would you characterize her as a mother?
Well, I'm not really one to be able to.
From the family, from what the family had to say.
Well, she's only been a mother for about 6 months, so the family just knew her as, you know, she was caring, she was soft-spoken. It's very basic information what they've seen of her.
She was like a typical housewife.
She spoke English and she did speak Urdu as well, but it was broken English.
How is she assimilating into the country, into the culture?
Well, for the year that she was here, she was assimilating fine.
She did maintain certain traditions, from what I understand, in terms of fasting and prayer 5 times a day. She chose not to drive voluntarily, but these are all benign. You know, these are things that, you know, many Muslims do, and it doesn't mean anything necessarily.
Yeah, we're just trying to get anything new about her from a good source, which is the family.
I think what we're seeing is like she was a very, very private person. She kept herself pretty well isolated. She was very conservative, and I think one of the dangers is, since everyone does know so little, is that she's easy to pin things to or stigmatize with, and she's been the one that the media has done a lot of that too, because there's no picture, and so it's or there's not a lot of information about her. So I think we need to guard against that. But unfortunately, I wish I could answer the question better. There is very little information we have about her, other than the fact that she was a caring housewife. And
one of the things I can tell you guys, I had discussed with the family about the housewife, is that they're very traditional in the sense when the family would go over to the house, they wouldn't all be together in the room. The women would sit with the women and the men would sit with the men. But that is a very traditional way of acting. It wasn't anything that was different. So the men did not interact with her. And the brothers did not actually ever see her face. They've never seen her face because she did wear a burqa. So they just knew her. Yes, she was totally covered. So they just knew her as Saeed's wife.
Did you speak English, too?
She did speak broken English, but her main language was Urdu.
Looking back at all this, obviously the explosive devices, that took a long time to make those. It took, you know, planning to get whatever they were wearing, these vests or whatever they were. Was there, paint a picture for us for the family? I mean, are they looking back now and saying, well, you know, when they did, you know, X, Y, and Z, that sort of, now that makes sense. Now we realize that's what they were.
No, the family was, to be honest with you, they thought Saeed's hobbies, and which they still were, was building cars. You know, this was his thing. He liked to go in his garage and he liked to work on things. They never used to invade his personal space. That was his man caves of sort. He used to go into the garage and work on things. He used to build shoe racks for his sister instead of making her buy one. So the family was taken by shock. You know, they're very remorseful, and this is something that took them and just hit them as hard as anybody else.
Did the family ever go in the garage?
The family would just go in there just to see some of the things that he might be working on, like his car. But one of the brothers even explained that he wouldn't really go in there because when he would just go in there, it would just be for play dates. His daughter and his daughter would be playing together, but that would be it.
They never noticed any of the guns or any of the arms?
Well, they were aware of the guns that were at the house, but they were also aware that the guns were locked up in a case.
I mean, when we talk about guns, we're talking about, like, from what I understand, there was 2 9mm, and then there was 2 rifles. But that was what we know, that was for target shooting before then. But there was definitely never evidence of any of the other things.
Could you characterize the level of Saeed's mechanical ability? I mean, he had this hobby, but
It wasn't something that he had gone and gotten a formal education for. It was something that he had picked up by watching his father, reading books. He read books about, you know, cars, mechanics. It was mostly car books that he was reading, and he was learning as he went along.
You said that he had been made fun of by someone
Teased.
at work, teased about his beard. Is that something he talked about a lot? I know there was a man we interviewed yesterday who had very strong religious beliefs, and his wife talked about that. Did he say, you know, there's a guy at work who's been harassing me? Or
I think it was just a general conversation that he had with the family when he explained that, oh, somebody just made fun of my beard.
But that's part of the concern, I think, is that we can't lead some intolerance to lead to further intolerance, or in addition, there's times when these things happen in all sects of American culture, where someone is disgruntled or gets made fun of or is uncomfortable or is an antisocial person, and they lash out and they do bizarre things, like in Columbine or wherever, in Colorado recently. It's hard to attribute just to the religion of Islam or Muslim people, and all Muslims, like I said, are condemning this act, and we're all praying on behalf of the victims, and we all feel terrible about what happened.
But experts will also say if this was a workplace type of shooting, there's always some sort of sign leading up to it. And you're saying the family did not see any sign whatsoever, save for this beard.
No, the family just knew that he was made fun of the beard. There wasn't anything else. He had just told the family, oh, somebody made fun of my facial hair. And his job, he had to keep his facial hair kind of trimmed up a little more because of the type of job that he had and in the county. So that's why he had told the family about this situation. And mind you, he was a pretty private person. So for him to share some information, that's why the family had conveyed that to us of what actually happened at the workplace.
Yeah. There's been some conflicting information out there about how the couple met. Do you have any idea about their personal history?
Yeah, the couple met through an online dating website. It was actually a marriage website. They had met. They had interests that, they matched up.
Was it a Muslim website or?
Well, we don't actually know what kind of website. We were actually trying to find out more information about the website with the FBI as well. It's still ongoing. It was about 2013.
Well, so then how do you know about this?
The family and us have talked about this, as well as the FBI.
In the investigation.
Met in person, just to follow
Excuse me?
along. Do you know when they met in person? So they met online sometime in 2013.
They probably met in about 2013, and then they ended up getting married closer to the 2014 time period.
Did they meet in person at any time before that, or would have that been the first time they got together?
So he had went out there for a Hajj, and then they went ahead and they met, and then they got married a short time after that.
So that's two separate trips. You went there for the Hajj and then came back a second time. And
That is our understanding, yes.
Did he meet with her personally when he went to the Hajj?
No, at that time, I think he might have met with the family, is what we understand from the family members themselves.
There have been unsubstantiated reports that it was the wife who could have been radicalized and somehow involved her husband, unsubstantiated, I know. But I'm wondering if any of the family members saw anything to suggest that she perhaps was more dominant than a submissive Muslim woman might traditionally have been.
She was very soft-spoken. From the conversations that we've had with the family members, they explained that she was a very soft-spoken individual. Yeah. The women were the ones who were able to communicate with her, since Saeed did not want anybody else to talk to her because of the tradition that he was focusing on. So they said she was very soft-spoken, she was nice, and mind you, they only knew her for about a year and a half or so.
What do you know about her family?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing at all?
Nothing. They live in Saudi Arabia. That's all we know.
Are they concerned for their safety, the family? Have they had any threats? And what are their...
The family members in Saudi?
No, I mean the family here.
Oh, yeah. They've gotten threats. It's been a consistent kind of thing. They've gotten phone calls. They've gotten people threatening them through Facebook. They've deactivated everything. The brother was misidentified. Raheel was misidentified as Saeed. And that's... it's a really bad situation to be misidentified as an active shooter while he was in work in LA County.
Is her family Pakistani or Saudi?
Whose family?
Her family.
Who?
Pakistani.
They're Pakistani.
And they moved to Saudi Arabia?
They moved to Saudi Arabia.
When she was 18 or 20, she went to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to get married with Saeed.
Yes.
Did the family see them Wednesday morning when they dropped off the grandchild and talked about...
I think there's been some confusion about what they did with the grandchild. The mother lived with Saeed and his wife. So they were going off to a doctor's appointment, and they left the child with her. They didn't actually drop off the child anywhere. Since the mother lived there, she was taking care of her grandchild at that time.
Did they have any strange behaviors that morning?
No, they actually had the stomach flu earlier, so he had told the mother that they were going to go to a doctor's appointment, and he was going to take his wife to the doctor's appointment.
If the mother lived with them, she never noticed anything going on in the garage or anything at all?
I guess what I would say is this is just the stereotypical situation of what takes place every time there is an event like this. Most of the time, no one knows that much about the shooter. And the same thing was the case here. The mother stayed to herself. I think she stayed upstairs, and so she would have been separate and not really known much about what was taking place in the rest of the house. And everyone is always surprised by these incidents, and the same thing is true here. Everyone was in shock. There was a tendency to look for a network, a religious affiliation, an imam, an extremist group, friends, lists of people that went to the wedding, anything that could be there to find some type of a terrorist network. And the FBI was doing their job. We're all angry. We all want answers. We all want security. We all want to be protected. But nothing came up, and that is what is so shocking about all this. And I guess I just feel the need to emphasize that so much because we just have a tendency to characterize it in that way. And unfortunately, it was really bizarre to sit through the interviews for 4 hours and not find or see anything. But that's exactly what happened. There was nothing linking this to religion or terrorist-related activity.
I mean, they have their own investigation. I mean, they're not necessarily just because they're interviewing journalists.
But they're the FBI, and they're damn good at getting this information. They asked everything they could. They had the mother under pressure for 7 hours or so. They basically took her into custody, and at one point they had the mother in custody, and they said, "We're not letting your mother go." They said this to Syra, the sister of Saeed. "We're not going to let your mother go until you and your brother and your sister Eva come in for questioning." And I get the feeling that that was a really traumatic experience because her son had just died, and not to mention she was totally distraught over how that happened and the victims. She's been crying all these past couple days. She hates what happened. She's very mournful over the victims. But I guess what I'm saying is that they're not new to this game. I mean, one of the FBI investigators we sat down with clearly looked like he would be a plant in a mosque. He had a beard. He looked like he just walked right out of Pakistan or Saudi Arabia. And these are very shrewd, smart individuals, and if there was any information there, they would have gotten it or found it. I mean, the entire world is digging for information, and the most we've gotten so far is somebody looked at something on Facebook. So,
well, that's all they're telling. I mean,
that's all we got so far.
Right.
What about the information, the digital media that they destroyed?
Yeah, well, what we know is that the sister Eva went back to pick up the mother, and when she went back, the computers in the house were unplugged, she had said. But I haven't read all about this digital information. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of yeah, I won't go.
There's more information that we're going to be getting once we go back on Monday to discuss the different media that they claim was destroyed as well. The family has been more than cooperative with giving up any other sources of multimedia that they might have to assist the FBI in their investigation.
What do the family think happened then? Do they have any theories?
The family is in complete shock. They have no idea whatsoever. This was their brother by blood, but they weren't too close to him. Everybody had their own families, everybody had their own children, everybody had their own life. They weren't as close as they were when they were 15, 16 years of age. The family's in complete shock. They're very sad for all the victims. They have 2 losses of their own as well.
Can you talk about the 2 AR-15 style rifles? It was reported that Saeed did not own them, but they belonged to a former roommate of his. Do you know anything about that? Do you know who the roommate
Well, that's still an ongoing part of this investigation that we're finishing up with FBI. So once we finish that up, we'll give you guys more details about that.
Where the roommate is? Has he been taken?
We're not going to be able to discuss that either right
Can you
now.
tell us where the baby is now? The child?
It's in Child Protective Services, from what we understand, and I guess we're not. We've been trying to get the baby back, but it looks like we're probably not going to be able to get the baby out until at least Monday.
There is a hearing set for the child. We've been in open communication with Child Protective Services to get this child released to one of the family members. And the FBI has been willing to release it to one of the family members.
Do you know which family member is hoping to raise the child?
It's most likely looking like his older sister.
Which one?
His oldest sister.
Oh, I thought he is. Oh, okay. What's
Yeah.
her name?
Syria.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Basically, what you're saying here today is whatever motive there was for this is very, very hidden. Or there was a motive. You still want people to jump to conclusions as to what that motive is?
It's been very hidden, as you can see from the statement of the FBI chief. You know that there isn't any connection, and I guess we're all wanting justice, and we're all wanting to make sure we find out anyone who may be affiliated with it, so we'll be protected in the future. But at the same time, I guess we've just been saying that we all need to be protective and respectful of one another's religious freedoms and due process, freedoms of due process, and so that's what I would say about that. The motive is the motive is very unclear. It could be a disgruntled worker.
At this point, since the investigation is still ongoing, it could be disgruntled employee. It could be information that's coming out about their connections to different types of groups. We're still waiting, and until we make a determination, until we finish up with the FBI on Monday and Tuesday, that's when we're going to be able to really see what this is kind of painted as.
So they told you Monday and Tuesday?
We will be doing interviews with on Monday and Tuesday with the FBI.
Do you know more about, you said the wife was not allowed to practice to be a pharmacist here?
No, we didn't say that she wasn't allowed to practice. We said she was not a pharmacist here.
Okay. But did she get a degree while in Saudi Arabia?
No, there was no type of degree in Saudi Arabia that she had received. Okay, so we'll be finishing this up. If you guys have any more questions on Monday, once we finish up with on Monday or Tuesday with the FBI. Okay, guys?
Thank you very much, guys. David Chesley, D-A-V-I-D-C-H-E.
Pretty extraordinary news conference there. The two attorneys representing Saeed Rizwan Farouk's family. He was the husband, the male shooter involved in the San Bernardino mass killing that resulted in 14 deaths, 21 people injured, claiming that there's no evidence of any inspiration by ISIS or any other terrorist organization for what was going on, even though the FBI today, the FBI director, says this is now a formal terror or investigation. Lots to discuss. Jim Shudo, you and I were listening very carefully to these two attorneys, David Chesley, Mohammed Abu Shaid, making the case. The family members of Farouk were totally shocked. They had no idea, totally surprised. Some co-worker had made fun of Farouk's beard. That may have been some sort of incident. We learned the mother actually lived, the mother of Farouk lived with this couple and the 6-month-old baby. It was very, very unusual, to put it mildly.
Unusual, particularly 48 hours after you had 14 people killed and 21 injured by the shooting. One thing they tried to do was to undermine the case that this was tied to terrorism. For instance, the lawyer Chesley was saying that all the FBI has presented is that he checked out a certain website. Well, in fact, as our reporting is that the wife made a posting pledging allegiance to the ISIS leader as this attack was unfolding. So you have that. But it was a flip description of that, because he said, well, just because this is in the words of the lawyer, check out a Britney Spears website doesn't mean that I'm loyal to her. An odd comparison to make 48 hours after a mass murder. You have that. But you have them, in effect, questioning that it's terrorism, in addition to saying that the family had no idea that this was going on. Now, to be fair, I know that my colleagues out in Los Angeles have heard at local mosques, for instance, and this is a broader view, that in the wake of an attack like this, many Muslims feel, and clearly his family feels as well, that Muslims are being accused here. Muslims in general, as opposed to just the shooters. That's the way they were taking it there. Listen, it was an odd tone, I think we can say, at least, so soon after all these killings.
They certainly were not denying that these two individuals had gone there and murdered 14 people and injured 21 others.
Well, the odd thing is they didn't even talk about that. It was sort of like that was kind of kept over here in talking about these other things. They did say that the family is sorry and that that their thoughts and prayers go out to the victims, etc. But that was a minor part of the conversation.
Yeah, I stand by. We're going to have much more. More information is coming in. We're following the breaking news. Representative.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.